Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pup, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day, and that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we are continuing our NFL free agency reaction, beginning with the San Francisco 49ers. Made a handful of signings last night, even one this morning, and we have a ton of questions to get to as to what exactly are the San Francisco 49ers doing. We're also going to take one look at the rumor mill as NFL free agency reaches day number 3 of the 2025 NFL season. Welcome to the new year and welcome to 49ers Access. Ladies and gentlemen, there is plenty of news to discuss today, and I have plenty of questions to get to. A lot of people are still searching for answers when it comes to what the 49ers are doing. Every Instagram post, X post is either a fan being angry, pissed off, irate, or simply asking, what in the heck are the Niners doing in free agency? A lot of that stems from a massive departures that transpired yesterday and even some today with Blake Collins and Javon Hargrave signing with the Vikings and Browns, respectfully. But I want to try to kind of decipher, if you will, what the Niners are doing this offseason, because many of you have questions and many of you are frustrated, wondering, again, what's going on with our beloved San Francisco 49ers and a lot of the departures that have been had, if you will. Kyle Juszczyk released, Leonard Floyd, Hargrave, Collins, Greenlaw, Hufanga, many departures this offseason thus far. A lot of people have come to the conclusion that it's an indictment on Kyle Shanahan, that Jed York doesn't believe in him anymore, that Parag is kind of, choking this regime out, trying to maybe in a way move away from it in the future. And a lot of people believe that this is the Yorks, that being Jed, kind of telling Kyle, you don't have the resources you once had to make a really great team. And I really want to push back on that because, well, yes, this is Parag and York undoubtedly tightening the reins on this regime and what they can do when it comes to spending money and cash this offseason. I think the Niners, yes, are at a tipping point. I think they realized they overpaid a lot of players that really didn't deserve to get paid in order to win that Super Bowl, which never happened. They lost twice. They were there twice. They had a nice window. They just couldn't get the job done. In trying to win a Super Bowl, they overpaid a lot of people. Floyd, Hargrave, at some point, Kyle Juszczyk. There's a reason why you're hearing Brandon Ayuk's name brought up. There's a reason why Deebo Samuel got traded. But I don't think them cutting players and money off the books is an indictment on Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch whatsoever. I don't think them going in a different direction, the organizational shift, I do not believe that is an indictment on Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch's production as GM and head coach. I do think that this is actually the opposite. This is further proof they trust Kyle and John's abilities to fix the issue more than anything. And I get it. I've seen fire Kyle Shanahan comments, fire John Lynch comments in every social media post that I have, and I do understand the frustration. That said, there has to be a trust. Like, if Parag and Jed were done with Kyle, if they were just, nope, you failed twice, we're done, they would have fired them. They wouldn't give them the extra year. They wouldn't pay Brock Purdy. They wouldn't keep Brandon Ayuk, or they wouldn't keep Fred Warner and Nick Bosa and other star players on this team. They would clean house entirely, like Jed York did with the Jim Harbaugh era. Roman was gone. Harbaugh was gone. Many other top-of-the-line coaches were done following a really disastrous season that led to the York getting pissed off and firing Harbaugh. I do think this is York and Parag being open about their failures, admitting them to themselves, to Kyle, to John, saying, hey, look, we didn't get a job done. Something has to change. While in the meantime, also being good businessmen, saying the clock is ticking and we have to change something in order to preserve the future of this current regime. And if, say, things don't go well, maybe the potential next regime, if it eventually goes that route in the next couple years or so. I also want to push back on the idea that watching all these star players leave, watching all these top-of-the-line players, Deebo Samuel today, that trade was official. The outpouring of love was awesome, but I see a lot of people saying, Sterling, what makes you believe they can fix this? And I will completely admit that there is so much pressure on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, to essentially have a massive influx of talent via the NFL draft. That is you have 3 days to essentially fix this team, 4 days to make this roster somewhat complete and competitive once again. A lot of pressure. You have to hit on those picks. Scouts' jobs are on the line this summer if they don't get things right at April's draft. However, a lot of people seem to have lost faith or really forget history. When Kyle and John took over this team was absolutely terrible. Terrible. Jim Tomsula, Trent Baalke, Chip Kelly. This roster was left in shambles with absolutely terrible talent. And yes, it took them 2 quick years to then jump to perennial Super Bowl contender. And I get it, you have high-end picks, but it's not like they've hit on those high-end picks, which in some way could make you hesitant to buy into the idea they can fix the issues in the NFL draft. But I push back and say, despite the issues they've had in drafting Solomon Thomas and Mike McGlinchey and Reuben Foster early in the draft in their first couple years or so, this is the exact same regime. Saleh, Shanahan, and John Lynch that drafted a lot of players, including Brock Purdy, Isaac Arendo, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, Dominic Pooney. At the time, a relatively good right tackle in Mike McGlinchey, who wasn't a great pass blocker, but really did what Kyle Shanahan wanted him to do as a run blocker. You have Nick Bosa, DJ Jones, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Lenore, Bernardo Green, Talanoa Hufanga, Malik Mustafa, and many other small drafted contributors that helped push this roster to being one of the best in football. I see no reason as to why, despite the, I guess you can say, uproar from the fans, a lot of people in the national media, that why shouldn't we at least give them an opportunity, sit back and just wait and see what they do? I get it, you're seeing other teams sign big-name free agents. Almost every free agent San Francisco either let walk or cut is already signed. Literally, the minute Hargrave and Collins got released officially, they were already on new teams. It was like, bang, they're done. And when you see those things, it's okay to question why this is happening and what's happening, but I do think we have to give a little bit of time and faith into what Kyle and John are doing. Now, it may not work. They may blow this thing up and it may backfire completely. And that can certainly happen. But I do think we have to give this regime that built the roster we are actively complaining about losing players from, and I think a lot of those justifiably, we're not giving that same regime a chance to build it back up this offseason. This is a really bad free agency class, but a really good draft class, and watching other teams that have a ton of money spend money on players that are 31, 32, 33, late 20s, and have injury history. San Francisco really shouldn't be in the business of buying into those players, hence letting other teams overpay, hence sitting back, being somewhat complacent, cutting money, trying to get ahead of the curve, and hoping, come in the draft, they can fix and fill a lot of the holes they have on their current roster. They've done great in the draft in previous years. They have found undrafted free agents. A lot of you love Jordan Mason. Where'd they find him? Emmanuel Mosley. Where'd they find him? Plenty of other key contributors for this team. Raheem Mostert, early in this team's regime's tenure, was a UDFA, not from San Francisco, but a practice squad guy who was nothing before he got to San Francisco. So I think we have to kind of be patient a little bit here. Don't overreact, but also be open to giving this regime some time. I get it, panic setting in. Oh my God, Leonard Floyd goes to the Falcons for $10 million. Hargrave signs for $30 million. Whatever. Like, cool. Good for those teams and those players. That doesn't change anything for San Francisco. The mindset has always been draft, 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 draft. And I think 2025 can be and will be a recasting and a maneuvering of money. But if anything, and this is a hopeful thing, that it is a short course correction after multiple big-time swings and misses in order to get back to being a really competitive team. This team missed on Trey Lance, traded away its future at the time, missed on Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, and those things may make you not want to buy in. However, I think what they've been able to do from rounds 2 to 7, they found a franchise quarterback at the last pick of the draft. They found Deebo Samuel in round 2, who I get is gone now, but was an incredible player for a very short period of time. Before his injury, Brandon Ayuk was a tremendous player. Juwan Jennings, a 7th-round pick as well. We have to give this GM and head coach combo some time to figure things out. I get it. We're all like, what's going to happen with San Francisco in 2025? I see many of you saying it's a rebuild, it's going to be terrible, under 500. I'm in the wait-and-see game. They have earned my patience. They have earned my time to sit back and say, let's see what John and Kyle have cooking up. There has to be a plan. There can't just not be a plan. Because if there's not a plan, then, oh my God, hit the panic button. But I am willing to bet there is some kind of plan. And I'm assuming a lot of that stems from the NFL draft. It has to. It has to. This roster is decimated on the defensive line. While they have plenty of offensive starters still, they have to find key contributors on the defense. Hence why I think in one of the most stacked defensive tackle classes in recent years, their eyes are not towards free agency. They'll have some small signings here or there, but they are looking towards April's draft saying that is when we make our bread and butter. And hopefully, even if they hit on 7 picks, 8 picks, that's 8 of 11, 7 of 11, you're in a really good place for a team that has to have young incoming talent. This team is old as heck. They're old as my dog shakes his head and flaps his ears around. This team is old and has to get younger, right? You can't go back with Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, Aaron Banks and Deebo and Jalen Moore and Elijah Mitchell, Travarius Ward, Hargrave, Kyle Juszczyk, Malik Collins. We were begging for something to change, and now the change is here, and people are mad about it. You can't have it both ways. I get change is hard. Nobody likes it, but San Francisco, while bringing back Robert Saleh, was an indication of a reversion back to the normal, if you will. It also was kind of preparing us for things are not going to be as easy as they once were. And to get back to being a perennial contender, you have to reshape this roster and make some catastrophic, maybe, at least some monumental moves in order to get there. It stinks in the moment, but be patient, please. And maybe they are terrible. Maybe they suck and stink and it doesn't work out. But give a regime that built the roster a lot of people are currently complaining about some time to hopefully give it a redo in 2025. I want to go to the YouTube comments here because Fluffy Ninja says, hi, what's up, Fluffy Ninja? Jesus says, all teams have to overpay. NFL players demand you spread wealth around. Players Association demands players get paid for their security, billions for all 32 teams. Yes, and San Francisco was one of the top payers the last 4 years in the NFL. They paid the piper, and they're realizing it didn't work. And to be able to pay the piper down the road, hopefully next offseason or in 2 off seasons, you have to be able to, 1, be competitive. You don't spend money if you stink. If you stink, you tank, you get draft picks. San Francisco has the ability to still, on the field as of right now, put out a really competitive team. On offense, they have Brock Purdy, who looks to be a really good quarterback. They have Christian McCaffrey if he's healthy. You have Jordan Mason if he comes back. You have Isaac Guerendo. That's already a pretty good running back and quarterback room right there. As receivers, you have Juwan Jennings, you have Pearsall. You just signed DeMarcus Robinson, who we'll get into in a second here, but you have George Kittle. You signed Luke Farrell. You have almost the entire same offensive line, minus Aaron Banks, which is a pretty good addition by subtraction, if you will. Your offense is pretty much intact, and you hope to get Brandon Ayuk back later on in the year. Your offense is kind of set. Like, you don't have many moves to make offensively, albeit draft a receiver here or there, draft a running back, draft a guard or a center or a tackle. You don't have to make, these pivotal big moves offensively to get back to where you once were 2 years ago.
More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants, including the $155 Walmart Plus monthly membership credit and $240 flexible business credit. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
The thing is defense. And they have 11 picks in a really stacked defensive class to get those things right. So San Francisco picked, at least when it comes to free agency compared to the draft, a really good year to make this pivot. Now, again, it may not work, but as of right now, San Francisco paid the piper. It didn't work out. They have to recalibrate by doing so, cutting a lot of players, having an $80+ million dead cap hit. Again, just be patient. They did what they were supposed to do. They tried to capitalize on the window. They didn't get it done. They failed twice. They have to make some changes. There's no longer the all-in mentality. To earn the all-in mentality, to earn the all-in, we're going to give you millions of dollars each year, to go in and have Jed York pay a bunch of money, you have to earn that. And San Francisco last year was 6-11, didn't earn that. And they have to almost get back there to have Jed York be willing to pay big money again to invest in this roster. To get back there, one, your offense is already pretty good. But if you stack your defense again with young talent, this is not a rebuild where it's 5 or 6 years down the road. This can be done in one offseason. The Rams did it. The Bills did it last offseason. And there's certainly some nuances involved in there, but this is not like oh my God, they're tearing everything down for a bad reason, or York and Prague are being just greedy millionaires. It's a good time to do this. Now, again, it may not work, but I do think this is a good time to do this, and it's a really good time to believe in Kyle and John and even Robert Saleh to hopefully turn this thing around with a very, very stacked draft class around the corner. And Bobo saying here, I challenge Sterling to go through a whole show without saying albeit. Well, sometimes, Bobo, you have to say words that fill time. And it probably isn't the best thing, but I appreciate your comment, Bobo. And I love that you're here for a show today. I do want to talk about San Francisco currently because they've cut so many players that we talked yesterday about the dead cap hit being massive. Yesterday was $77+ million. Today, with the official release of Hargrave, Collins, and Leonard Floyd, they have $86+ million in dead cap, but a big plus in this, I won't say albeit here, Bobo, they have $42-ish million in cap space, so they do have the ability to sign certain players if they want to. Again, we have no idea who they were in on during free agency so far. Some of the big names that you wanted them to sign, they may have been in on, but couldn't meet the asking price, hence Joey Bosa, who we'll talk about pretty soon here. But they have money to spend. Like, they have the ability to go out there and sign Brock Purdy, redo Kittle's deal, extend Fred Warner, and invest in the roster and players that have, one, been very durable for them, but also, two, deserve and have earned that money, right? There's a reason why Debo is gone. There's a reason why Juszczyk and Floyd and Hargrave and Collins and others are gone. In their perspective, those guys either, one, didn't earn that money, or two, were kind of a waste of a roster space with the current contracts they had. They want to reward, if you will, the guys that actually are going to be contributors for them. Purdy, Kittle, Warner, maybe Juwan Jennings again. I would do that in a heartbeat. And other guys you'll see down the road when their contracts are up. But I do think with $42 million in current cap space, you're looking at carryover cap in the next year, where San Francisco already has about $26 million in dead cap already on the books. So while yes, this is a maneuver for the future, it's also a maneuver for now to, one, give them cap space, eat the dead cap and get it out of the way before it goes on to the next year's books. But also, it really is the ability to carry over that cap into future years in order to, again, invest in the roster when the time is right. There is no reason this current regime, with Jed and Parag at the top, need to invest big money in this current roster. You have to earn that right again. This is a massive year for John and Kyle. Not a hot seat year, but a massive year to almost regain the right to invest big money in the roster. They tried to, it failed, but you have to earn that right. Having $42 million in current cap space with the ability to carry most of that over into next year, maybe if you get lucky, 2027, you're going to have a little more cushion, if you will, to invest money back into your roster in the future. And again, if you hit on those draft picks, you are going to be in a really good place as an organization and hopefully back as a true competitor in the NFC. With that said, before we dive into the rumor mill of today's NFL free agency period, I want to let you know, if you go to SeatGeek.com, you can use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS, and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Whether it's football, baseball, basketball, summertime concerts, SeatGeek is your best place to go. Use our promo code and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Okay, let's dive into the rumor mill that is today. Bo, it's all love. I will say whatever I want to, but again, I love you. I love you're here, and I appreciate all the comments in the YouTube chat. But let's talk about Joey Bosa, because the stars were aligned for at least about a week or so that Joey Bosa looked like he was coming to San Francisco. I think whether it was myself, Matt Mayoko, Adam Schefter, Rappaport, even Slick Rick on Twitter, the dog that has no face, that is somehow an inside scooper for the NFL, they all were saying, Joey Bosa is coming to San Francisco. The stars are aligning for this to happen. And it didn't. Joey Bosa signed a 1-year, $12.6 million deal with potentially the ability to go to $15.6 million in incentives with the Buffalo Bills. Now, one, I don't know why Joey want to play in a cold weather state and city with turf fields. Not great for your lower body. I don't know why you wouldn't want to stay on grass, but I digress. Not the Dolphins or the Niners. It is a Buffalo Bills destination for Joey Bosa. And when I saw that deal, I think the immediate reaction from fans was a letdown. And a lot of people were like, I thought you said it was happening. And I think for the most part, it was going to happen. San Francisco was the favorite to land Joey Bosa. However, ain't no way in hell San Francisco or myself, no matter how much I thought Joey Bosa would have been coming to San Francisco and would have been awesome in San Francisco, would I have signed Joey Bosa to a $12.6 million base salary with an opportunity to make $15.6 million. Too rich, too expensive. I love Joey Bosa. I wanted him here. I sold you on the idea of it, but not for that asking price. Good for him. Good for the Bills. It's a massive risk at that price that myself nor San Francisco would probably want to take. And I know somewhere, whether it's now or later, Joseph Ehrenberg is going to be in those comments saying, I told you so. I told you so. I didn't want Joey Bosa at any price. And Joseph, you got your wish. $15.6 million is insane for Joey Bosa, knowing the injury history that he's had, 7 different injuries the last couple seasons. We'll see if that move works out for them, but it's a move I'm thankful San Francisco did not make. Yet, it does lead to some perplexing moves by San Francisco, because they don't get Joey Bosa. Okay, that's one thing in itself, whatever, we kind of already got into that. But they also released Leonard Floyd, which felt like a precursor to signing Joey Bosa, which in itself, I don't hate releasing Floyd, but it does, and I think this is where many fans are questioning, like, what's the plan here? It's Nick Bosa and Yetur Gross-Matos and an injured Drake Jackson and Robert Beal Jr. Like, what is the plan at edge rusher? And I think a lot of people, including myself, thought, well, Floyd's gone, you must be getting Joey Bosa at this point in time yesterday. And it wasn't the case. Like, I'm starting to wonder, like, it's a very head-scratching move to not get Bosa and also cut Leonard Floyd, who, if anything, was a fine, just rather consistent. He'll give you 8.5 sacks, even if they aren't impactful, with which they really weren't. He's at least somebody worth having on the roster, and somebody that really didn't give you much when you cut him away today. So really interesting move. Didn't think I loved that from the team. I don't mind them not landing Joey Bosa, but also cutting Floyd, knowing now in retrospect you probably weren't going to get Joey Bosa. I don't really get it. There is ways to make up for it, because again, I do wonder, like, what is the plan at edge rusher? You don't have much there currently, but are they going to sign Josh Uche? Are they going to sign Azeez Ojulari from the Giants now that he's gone? Like, what's the plan? I don't really understand what they're doing at edge rusher. Again, the draft makes the most sense, but you can't walk into the year with essentially 2 edge rushers that are or 3 actually healthy. You can't do that to yourself. You can't sign a bunch of bargain bin guys that are making $1.5 million that have no starting experience. You have to have somebody, which I think Floyd would have been that for you, at least a stable figure opposite Nick Bosa. And I think the idea was they're always going to draft 1 or 2 guys anyways, but that was with the understanding that you can do that if you have Joey Bosa or Floyd or both of them. Now you have none of them. So I'm hoping they can get some maybe younger, lower floor, higher upside players like Ojulari, like Josh Uche. But now it's like you kind of have to invest 3 or 4 picks at the exact same position, which it kind of looked like you were already going to do that at the defensive tackle position, but now you got to do it in 2 different positions. So it's weird. It's perplexing. I have questions as well, and I'm kind of scratching my head saying, what's going on at the edge rusher position in San Francisco? I would have thought get either one of those guys. Sign Joey, keep Floyd, but to have none of them, again, rather confusing for myself, who is on board with the plan of rebooting and recasting, but this was one of the more, I just don't know what they're doing kind of moves of free agency thus far. I want to move on to the latest rumor coming out of the NFL free agency day 3 period, because according to Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports, the San Francisco 49ers are going to be hosting safety Juan Thornhill, Cleveland Browns safety who was just released today. They're going to host him on Thursday. And the Niners have been really attacking the defensive back position. It's not news. It doesn't shock me, if you will, knowing Saleh wants to rebuild this roster from the back end up, but or at least them investing money into the secondary doesn't shock me, knowing the draft is probably where they're going to go for the defensive line. But they currently have 7 safeties on this roster. 7! And they're looking to add another one in Juan Thornhill, which Juan is a different safety than who they currently have on the roster. He is 30 years old, so an older player, probably going to fit more into that, Tashawn Gibson style of player, albeit maybe a little bit more, there's that word again, Bobo, a little bit more versatile, more probably like a higher speed, can cover more ground, if you will. As a free safety, he is more of a pure free safety than Tashawn Gibson was with San Francisco, the Bears, and Jacksonville in his previous stops. But they have 7 safeties, and the idea they're going to target another one, who I like Juan Thornhill. He doesn't move me too much, but he's a fine veteran presence. He had 39 total tackles last year, 3 pass blocks or pass defenses, but 137.2 passer rating allowed. Don't love that. The coverage grade is okay, 64.5 coverage grade and a 61.7 run defense grade. So there's things to like from, Juan Thornhill. Again, the ability to play free safety in more of a roaming role makes sense. However, when you already have 7 on the roster and you're probably going to have to cut 3 of them, or at least 2 of them come opening week, if you will, acquiring another one doesn't make much sense to me, depending on how much they can sign him for, because George Odom has a $1 million guarantee that hits the books on April 1st, and he's an older player, a little bit older than Juan Thornhill is, but knowing who they've signed at safety and defensive back, a lot of special teamers, a lot of guys who round out your roster, I don't love this move. It's a veteran move that maybe gives you more cushion if Jair Brown isn't great, but either way, I'd rather draft a safety. I don't care who it is. Obviously I do, but I would go that route rather than signing Juan Thornhill and Jason Pinnock and, Richie Grant and other guys you've already brought in. You already have Mahoney, you have Brown, you have Mustafa, you have Odom, you already have all these pieces in place. Juan Thornhill doesn't really do much for me. However, if you cut Odom, obviously it makes more sense then, which I think may be the plan that they have in place at safety. But it's a fun player. He's a vet. Been a long-time Brown. Pretty successful player in his time in the NFL. And again, gives you more of that free safety style of player rather than San Francisco, who currently kind of has, they have a type. It's more of you're technically a strong safety, if you will. That's the archetype they have, but you can also play both, which is rather confusing. And I think they want to get a coverage player to pair with Mustafa or Brown in the safety position, which makes sense, but I don't really think Thornhill's that player. But maybe he is. This was on a bad Browns defense last year that really sucked it up out there in Cleveland. So don't hate it, just not going to move me too much, as will the other moves they have made thus far not do either. So it's out there. We'll see what happens. I do think that the Juan Thornhill move would eventually lead to a George Odom cutting, which makes sense to me. Papa J says, "What's up, Sterling?" And like and subscribe. Yeah, go ahead and do that right now. Like, share, and subscribe. Give us that 5-star review on the audio podcasting platforms. Joseph Ehrenberg says, "Pro, how'd you know I was watching?" Well, Joseph, you're always in here, but I knew yesterday you were completely out on Joey Bosa, and so I knew you were out there cheering. You were happy, oh, thank God we didn't get Joey Bosa on the roster. But I knew you were out there somewhere.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Dre Area Sports says, "What's up, Sterling? What's going on, Dre Area?" Free agency, Dre. I know you hate it. I know you hate free agency thus far. We've been talking back and forth, and Dre's like, "What the heck's going on this year?" As many of you have been doing as well, whether on or off the air. Orion says on YouTube, "These are good moves. We were never going to make a huge splash, but we got solid backup pieces. Also keep in mind, it's a generational defensive tackle draft, so we're going to get our DTs there." I would agree. I think that's a very optimistic way of looking at things. I think you and I align on our opinion on how things have gone this far. Obviously, would have really loved for San Francisco to cash in on Levi and Munzurike, but goes back to Detroit for a pretty cheap deal. So there are some moves I would have rather than made that would have been kind of on the fringes, rather than being in the middle of the free agency pool. But I think they've done well enough. It's hard to hate the moves they've made thus far. Again, they're usually floor-raising moves compared to ceiling-raising moves, which I think this team, with the stars they have a relatively high ceiling still. I don't know what that is. We'll obviously see come this next season, but a lot of these moves are simply rounding out the roster and hoping these rookies can come in and have an impact on day one. But before we get into talking about the 3 new additions, that being DeMarcus Robinson, Trey Brown, and Jason Pinnock, I want to kindly ask you to get yourself a can of goat fuel. in the description down below. It is the healthiest and the best energy drink on the market. If you're a podcaster, you're working that 9 to 5, blue collar, white collar, use that link down below and save yourself 10% off your purchase of goat fuel and support the show along the way. Okay, let's talk about who San Francisco added yesterday. We did a show, we talked about day 1 and day 2 of free agency, and the second we got off the YouTube live stream, it was like boom, 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 boom. San Francisco signs DeMarcus Robinson, they signed Jason Pinnock, and early in the morning, they signed cornerback Trey Brown. But let's talk about DeMarcus Robinson first. And tell me down below in the comments if you like any of these signings they have made thus far in free agency. I will tell you this. Signing wide receiver DeMarcus Robinson, former LA Ram, to a 2-year, $9.5 million deal with about $6 million guaranteed is a good move for this roster. For a variety of reasons, he can be a day 1 starter, he can fall back into the rotation once Ayuk comes back, and with him being on the roster for 2 years, it does give you some maneuverability, whether you bring back Juwan Jennings, which I hope they do next offseason, or if you want to trade Brandon Ayuk next year, it gives you more cushion with the hope that Pearsall and Cowing, or an incumbent rookie receiver, whoever they draft in this year's draft, if you will, can grow into a star for them. So it gives you cushion this year, it gives you an impact player this year, and also gives you cushion next year as well to help your roster out. And gives you more maneuverability if they want to get off of Brandon Ayuk's contract in a year or so. He also knows the system really well, was a Ram the last 2 years, ran the McVay, Shanahan-style offense, so it's going to be an easy plug-and-play for them out there in San Francisco. Had a pretty good year. I think the numbers aren't going to wow you, but I think they are pretty solid. 35 receptions, 602 yards, and 7 total touchdowns. And here's the kicker, he played all 17 games last year. He's a very durable player, and funny enough, every year he's played, I think he has 9 years of NFL experience. Every year, guess what? He's gone to the playoffs. So either that's going to get snapped, or it's a good sign for San Francisco that they may go back to the playoffs in 2025. But I think Robinson brings a lot to San Francisco's offense that they really missed last year especially. One, he's a deep threat. This team desperately needs a deep threat, especially with no Ayuk out there. And even when he gets back, it helps to have a player be able to stretch the field out and go against defenses and clear out things for guys underneath like Juwan, Pearsall, Ayuk, and Kittle, and maybe even Christian McCaffrey or whoever they draft in this year's April draft. Last year had the 5th highest depth of target, 16.8 yards. So he's getting you on average 15 yards per reception, or at least per target. He had 8 passes caught over 20 yards last season. That was tied for 20th in football, which was the best on the Niners last year if you plugged him in for the team, maybe outside of Juwan Jennings. He had 16 contested catches last year, which was on par with Devontae Smith and Brian Thomas Jr. So you're having a player that can go up and get the football against some pretty good defensive backs, unafraid to play through contact. He had 30, and this is funny enough here, 31 of his 35 receptions were for first downs, so very Juwan Jennings-like from DeMarcus Robinson. And since 2023, he has 64 receptions and only 2 drops. Again, you're getting almost Juwan Jennings, not as big, not as bulky, not going to run through guys like Juwan will, but you're getting a very clutch player that can go deep, has some speed, can stretch the defense and open up your offense, and also has pretty steady hands, which again, this team desperately needs. If you want to kind of categorize DeMarcus Robinson, it's just overall consistency. And this team needs some consistency out of its receivers, knowing Ayuk's not going to be back for probably 2-3 months. You really don't know what you're going to get from Pearsall and Cowing, which you hope it's good, but you just don't know because those guys haven't played very much for you in their rookie season. Although Pearsall did flash a lot, which we all believe in him, but you have to see it to believe it, right? I also think one of the more underrated aspects of DeMarcus Robinson is his red zone threatability. This team was atrocious in the red zone last year. we're talking like one of the worst in football. I get it. There was injuries. The offensive line didn't play great. There were so many reasons as to why that was. However, DeMarcus Robinson was just a weapon unlike any other in the red zone last year. Super efficient, a bigger body guy, if you will. Knows how to use his speed and his routes to create space. More of a sideline player, a perimeter player in the red zone and as a receiver. So it's going to give Brock Purdy, go back to that game in Seattle where he just threads that ball with George Kittle. You're going to see more of that, hopefully, to DeMarcus Robinson as a San Francisco 49er. He had 10 targets in the red zone, caught 5 passes, and funny enough, all 5 of those were for touchdowns. Again, efficiency and consistency is the name of the game for a player like DeMarcus Robinson. He can play outside, again, more of that perimeter player, but can also play in the slot if you need him to as well. You like it a lot. Played 235 slot receiver snaps last year, a career high, so there is a lot to like and love from DeMarcus Robinson. However, as much as we like, there are some drawbacks to his game, and one of those being off the field. The first one, I think, is not as bad. A below-average run blocker, so the no block, no rock could come into play for him. However, you go 2 years ago, 2023 and 2022, a well above-average run blocker, so some blocking inconsistencies. However, there has been some signs of a good run blocker in there somewhere for Robinson. But the bigger one is a suspension maybe coming his way. It's not going to cost him like 7 games or a whole season. It may be nothing. It's just more of a question mark on will he be there come day one, because he got a DUI in November last year. The NFL didn't suspend him, didn't really address it, but there is rumors that they may address it come this offseason. So he may get 1 game, he may get 3 games, who knows, but it is a big reason as to why the Rams chose not to re-sign him. So again, may not be a big deal, but when you talk about not having Ayuk for 2 months, the hope is that you have Robinson in the meantime to bridge the gap to get to him in his return. But if Robinson is out for 3 weeks, well, that cuts into half of that time already. So it could be nothing, but it could be something. Just a very small thing to watch out for as the offseason progresses. I do think Robinson is a great player, fits this scheme to a T. One of the reasons as to why I did not pick San Francisco to sign him was because of that the DUI. However, if he plays and is healthy and is good to go, a really good player that last year enough was proven to be a thorn in San Francisco's defense's side, which may not be a big thing knowing how bad they were. I do think he can be a very valuable player for San Francisco in 2025. Fluffy Ninja asks here, can we make it back to the Super Bowl this year? Can they? Realistically, the answer is probably no, but a lot of that depends on how the draft goes. We've seen a lot of teams get an influx of young talent that are really good. The Rams, a couple years ago, they were like a few plays away from going to the NFC Championship game this year. So there's reasons to believe and buy into it, but the odds of it are slim. I think your best bet is to buy in them making the playoffs and maybe being a spoiler here or there, like the Rams almost were against the Lions 2 years ago in Detroit. So there is a way, but I do think the odds are a playoff berth is more likely than getting back to a potential Super Bowl appearance, which is not very likely at all. William Roberts says, oh, well, if we don't want to go a line at 11, you better go James Pierce Jr. I don't think San Francisco is touching the offensive line at 11. We're hearing a lot of Tyler Warren rumors. It's becoming more common to talk about him at 11. I would be shocked to learn San Francisco didn't want to go get Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant or James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. I think those first 4 picks inside the 150 range are going to be like all defense. I wouldn't be shocked about that. You may have a receiver involved in there, but I think they're going to go defense heavy, and I really would not be shocked to see them do that. Bobo says, I kind of want Cooper Kupp. I get it. Ram player, very good player for a while in LA. I just don't love the injury history there. I don't know what his asking price may be. I'm assuming teams like the Packers, the Cowboys, and others will probably vie for him more. The Patriots could. And I think what happened with Joey Bosa and probably Dre Greenlaw was that they wanted those guys, but they were getting a bigger offer from a different team. I wouldn't be shocked to hear San Francisco be involved in Cooper Kupp, but I think the asking price will be too high. I think the asking price is just simply, he's probably going to get like $14 million, $12 million. And I don't think San Francisco wants to pay double-digit money to a receiver that has injury history. Again, they just gave DeMarcus Robinson about $9 million, almost $10 million, but he's super durable, and I think could be a better fit with what they need, at least this year, and maybe next year as well. So I like Kupp, but I just don't think the move makes much sense for San Francisco in 2025 or even 2026. Moving along to the next signing San Francisco made yesterday, that being Jason Pinnock, who was signed to a one-year deal. Not sure of the exact numerical value of the deal, but he's a safety. He's a depth piece, has some higher upside. He'll only be 26 years old this year, so there's reason to believe they can find something in him they like a lot more. He has some connections to, I believe, Brant Boyer and Robert Saleh. He played over 500 snaps in the box last year, too, so when you talk about three safety sets, maybe having kind of a slot in the box safety, Pinnock really itches that scratch, if you will, for Robert Saleh. He had 7 sacks and 28 pressures through about 4 years with the Giants. He does have a 14% missed tackle rate, which is lower than Hufanga and Mustafa, but still, you never want to have really a double-digit missed tackle rate, although it is similar to Brian Branch's, so there really is this like thumping, bigger safety that is kind of lanky, yet you want in the box. Pinnock really is that, and I think for a one-year deal it makes some sense. I think he'll be kind of vying for that third safety role with San Francisco. I don't think he'll be a starter, but I do think there is a way where he becomes kind of this playmaker. They play on like pivotal downs, on first down, or on run downs they like a lot. Because in 4 seasons with the Giants, he had 2 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles, and 9 pass deflections. So despite his, I guess you can say, inconsistencies and his inability in coverages, if you will, he has found a way to get near the football consistently and make plays for a defense that, with the Giants, has been pretty bad the last couple years.
This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was getting frustrated by your forms. Now, Taxes is uploading your forms with a snap, and a TurboTax expert will do your taxes for you. One who's backed by the latest tech, which cross-checks millions of data points for absolute accuracy, all of which makes it easy for you to get the most money back, guaranteed. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Also, an excellent run defender, a 73.45 run defense, great over his entire career. So you're getting a in-the-box, good run defending takeaway machine, if you will, from Pinnock. Now, obviously, there are some drawbacks. Not a special teamer, not great in coverage, but I think in the right position, in the right formation, in a certain role, I think he could become not a big player, but can definitely be a contributor for your defense in the long run. This year, I think, when you talk about Jair Brown having a down year last year, you may want Juan Thornhill, you may draft somebody. I think Pinnock is more kind of in step or in line to become a third safety compared to Richie Grant or compared to Jalen Mahoney or George Odom or even a Juan Thornhill. I think he has something that those guys don't have, which is a playmaking takeaway ability that I think separates him from the group, again, compared to Grant or Thornhill. That said, I do think, again, going back to they signed Grant yesterday or 2 days ago, they signed Pinnock. Things are leaning towards them stacking that safety room, which are going to lead to probably George Odom being cut, likely prior to April 1st. They can save about $1.44 million against the cap, and will save about $1 million off a guarantee, cutting George Odom pre-April 1st. So I like the Pinnock move. Again, I don't think he'll be a big player, but is a playmaker. At least he has been for the Giants. And I think taking a chance on a player like that makes some sense. Not sure what, again, the money value is, but for a one-year deal, I think it's good signing for San Francisco's defense. And then finally, the newest San Francisco 49er who was signed early this morning. That is cornerback Trey Brown, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks. I myself, being an Oklahoma Sooner fan, will say, Boomer Shooter, baby! I like this signing a lot. I really, really like this signing a lot for San Francisco. Albeit, there's that word again, Bobo. I'll admit that he's not going to be a bona fide star. He's not going to be someone you go, wow, where'd they get that guy? I do think there is a good chance he is this team's starting number 3 cornerback next year. I think he's a valuable player. I think he'll be in a mix with probably Darrell Luter Jr., maybe a rookie. But I do think he'll be kind of the Isaac Yiadom of this team last year, although I think he could be a better player than Yiadom was for this defense. Former 2021 4th-round pick. He has 13 career starts, so there is starting history with Trey Brown. The passer rating is not great, but a 96.7, which really isn't too bad. I've seen much worse signing by this team this year and in previous seasons. And that's on 91 targets, so again, there really isn't too much to dislike from that. However, last year, if you look at his PFF or his stats, you're going to go, ew, that's disgusting. He himself admitted that he battled a lot of injuries last year, which kind of hindered him. I also just don't think he was a fit for Mike McDonald's defense in Seattle last year, so there is reason to believe that playing in a more cover 3 zone-heavy defense could actually benefit him more than the regime change they had in Seattle last year in their defense they had with Pete Carroll out and McDonald in, kind of revamping that roster and defense as the season went on. That said, he is an elite and excellent run defender as a cornerback, something this team will value at a very high level. Solid tackler, so again, you're getting an aggressive run defending cornerback, which when you talk about how bad this team was last year, not great at tackling and a really bad run defending team, San Francisco has found ways to add kind of budget bargain bin signings for 1 year to kind of band-aid the problem. And hopefully if these things work out, maybe hold on to these guys in the future. Pinnock, Grant, Brown, not great coverage players per se, but really good run defending safeties and cornerbacks to help them against what has been one of their biggest weaknesses dating back to 2023. Especially. He also is a bona fide outside cornerback, meaning if he is this team's number 3 cornerback, you're probably going to see Lenore play slot or Bernardo Green play slot, depending on the play. If he doesn't win that job, I think it opens up so many more things for the defense, but I really like Trey Brown a lot. 1,000 snaps on the outside, it's a great thing for them, great thing for him. I will say this, though. He is somebody you do not want playing man coverage. We're talking like atrocious, terrible, awful, bad. You do not want Trey Brown playing man coverage for you whatsoever. Thankfully, San Francisco runs plenty of zone coverage in their cover 3 defense. And as a coverage 3 zone corner in previous years, mainly in 2023, had a 63.7 passer rating allowed, so a big improvement from that 96.7 passer rating allowed overall. Get him in zone coverage, a much, much better player than what we've seen from him overall in man coverage and zone coverage compared. He also gives you, like Richie Grant would as a safety, like many signings they've had, especially, again, Grant, the Luke Farrell and Luke Gifford signings, special teams versatility. The Niners are finding ways to improve on the margins. Those things matters. They saw how terrible they were at run defending and tackling and special teams and are addressing those things with quality depth signings that in Trey Brown's case could turn into a starting caliber player for you as soon as this year. I want to quickly go to the YouTube chat to end today's show. Bobo says, Tyler Lockett. I don't think that's the case. I think they have found their starting receiver, and I think his name is DeMarcus Robinson. And Benali P says here, Robert Saleh just got really used to Sauce Gardner, is trying very hard to recreate that. Maybe, but I also think you have Bernardo Green and you have Lenore. You don't really need to find your next Sauce Gardner, although he's a great player. I just think who they brought in, I don't think scream Sauce Gardner. I think they scream run defending, excellent tackling, quality takeaway machines in Pinnock's case, and then good special teamers. This team was terrible at all those things last year, and you're seeing the floor being raised. And again, in Brown's case, you're finding potentially a quality starter that can maybe slot in next to Lenore and Green on this defense this year. That said, if you see me soon, I will be in Japan. But first, it's my honeymoon, a belated one that is, but going to Japan on a flight very soon in the next 2 days or so. And if you could in the meantime, follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter, 49ers.access is the Instagram. You can use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And as Papa J says here, like, subscribe, and get yourself a can of goat fuel down below. And yeah, thank you to Benali P, Bobo, Fluffy Ninja, Alton Hardy, Papa J, Ryan, William Roberts, Joseph Erberg, Kawachipto, Dre Area Sports, and many, many others. Hey, Zeus M, all of you in the YouTube chat. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave that review. And the next time I see you, I might be in Japan. But until next time, comment down below. Tell me what you like from this year's free agency, or do you hate it altogether? My name is Sterling Bennett, and stay faithful.